Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into an incredible geographical journey. We are going to map out the complex, wild, and just incredibly rugged system known as the Cheat River watershed. If you've ever stared at a map of West Virginia and wondered how all those twisting, winding mountain streams actually connect, well, you're in the right place. We're going to bring some absolute clarity to this untamed aquatic playground, tracing the water's path from the absolute highest mountain peaks all the way down to its final destination. So let's dive right in.
To kick things off, I want to take you way back to 1784, to a really fascinating observation made by none other than George Washington. He actually visited the mouth of this river and wrote, "The color of the two waters is very different. That of Cheat is dark, the other is clear." He also noted its treacherous currents and these sharp rocks hidden right beneath the surface. It's this mysterious description of a river that, legend has it, actually earned its name because its hidden hazards literally cheated early settlers out of their lives. So what exactly makes this water so dark and wild? Well, we're about to unpack that whole mystery.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the anatomy of a watershed. Second, origins in the forest. Third, the five forks. Fourth, convergence at Parsons. And fifth, the journey to the Monongahela. Section 1. Anatomy of a watershed.
Before we get completely lost in the mountains, let's just clearly define what we're actually looking at. A watershed is simply the land surface that drains water to a specific point. Honestly, just think of it like a giant natural funnel. Every single drop of rain that falls within the boundaries of this funnel eventually flows down to the exact same exit point. It's a completely interconnected ecosystem, meaning what happens way up at the top deeply affects what happens at the bottom.
So picture the outer rim of that funnel as the watershed divide. High up on those edges, you've got your headwater tributaries, which are just the smaller streams that first collect the rainfall and snowmelt. Now, as gravity pulls that water down through the landscape, these tributaries systematically merge together. They gain volume, they gain power, until they eventually form the main stem of the river flowing through the floodplain. Keep this mental model in your back pocket, because the Cheat River is an absolutely perfect, if highly complex, example of this natural machinery at work. Section 2. Origins in the forest.
4,600. That is the sheer elevation, in feet, where this water first begins its journey. Specifically, this is the elevation at the beginnings of the Shaver's Fork, springing straight from Thorny Flat on Cheat Mountain. We are talking about the rugged, pristine, virtually untouched topography of the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. At this altitude, the water is freezing cold, crystal clear, and moving through deep, old-growth forests and federally designated wilderness areas. From those high peaks, that funnel I mentioned earlier spreads out to cover 1,422 square miles. That is the massive scale of the Cheat River drainage basin. To put that into perspective, it's a colossal amount of land. And while most of it lies in northeastern West Virginia, the watershed actually ignores state lines, draining parts of southern Pennsylvania and western Maryland as well. So the big takeaway here is that a huge expanse of land is catching water and sending it all toward a single river system.
Section 3. The five forks. The fascinating thing is the Cheat River doesn't just start as one big river. It actually begins as five distinct major tributaries known collectively as the five forks. Geographically, they're arranged a lot like the fingers on a human hand. You have the Shaver's Fork, the Blackwater River, the Dry Fork, the Laurel Fork, and the Glady Fork. And what's wild about these streams is that they run generally northward, flowing totally parallel to each other, just cutting through these deep mountain valleys for miles and miles before they even begin their complex convergence. And the contrast between these forks is literally night and day. Take the Shaver's Fork, for instance. Its upper reaches make up the highest river in the entire eastern United States, and it is steep, dropping an average of 24 feet per mile. But then you contrast that with the Blackwater River. Its personality is totally split. I mean, it starts out sluggishly meandering through the high-altitude Canaan Valley, right? But then it hits the Blackwater Canyon and drops a staggering 136 feet per mile. And hey, remember George Washington's quote about the dark water? Well, this is exactly where that happens. The abundance of hemlock and spruce trees in the Blackwater's drainage basin leach tannic acid right into the water. This gives it a distinctive, dark amber color that eventually tints the entire main stem of the Cheat. Section 4. Convergence at Parsons. Now, the way these rivers combine is highly systematic. It doesn't just happen all at once in a big mixing bowl. First, the two middle streams, the Laurel and Glady forks, merge together, with the Laurel getting the naming rights. Shortly after, this combined water meets the Dry Fork, and the river keeps going under the name Dry Fork.
Next, our dark, amber-colored Blackwater River comes rushing out of its canyon to join the Dry Fork. When they finally meet, the stream gets a new name, the Black Fork. And finally, the Black Fork meets our high-elevation Shavers Fork.
And where does that final grand union actually happen? At the town of Parsons, West Virginia. Parsons is the geographical pinch point. If the five forks are the fingers, Parsons is the metaphorical wrist of our human hand. At this exact spot, the five forks have officially finished combining, and the main stem of the Cheat River is officially born. From this point on, it is one unified, absolute powerhouse of a river.
Section 5. Journey to the Monongahela. From Parsons, the scenic main stem of the Cheat flows for nearly 162 miles. And you know what is truly remarkable in this day and age is that for almost its entire length, the river flows completely free, untamed, and totally without dams. It drops continuously from the high mountains, carving its way through the landscape exactly as it has for thousands of years.
And the journey is just breathtaking. The formation of the main stem marks the start of the Cheat River Water Trail, which is a nearly 40-mile aquatic playground of beautiful water, featuring calm, flat pools and wide, shallow riffles. It flows right past historic river towns like St. George, Rowlesburg, and Albright. And here's a crazy historical fact. In the early 19th century, this exact same stretch was used to float wooden barges carrying iron that actually made the cannonballs used in the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. Today, though, it's a paradise for boaters and a vital, recovering biodiversity hotspot.
But the river definitely doesn't stay calm forever. Downstream from Albright, things get intense as the river enters the Cheat Canyon Wildlife Management Area. This is a 3,836-acre protected wilderness, safeguarded by a massive $7 million collaborative conservation project. Here, the river drops dramatically, churning up world-class Class 3 and 4 whitewater rapids trapped right between 1,200-foot steep sandstone canyon walls. It's wild. And this gorge is a globally unique ecological treasure. It features river scour communities, caves, and rock outcrops that serve as totally critical habitat for the federally endangered Indiana bat. Amazingly, it is also the literal only place on planet Earth where you'll find the threatened Cheat three-toothed land snail.
Finally, after surviving the rapids of the canyon, the river reaches its destination. It flows right into Cheat Lake, which was created by a power dam built in the 1920s and drops down to an elevation of just 780 feet. Just across the Mason-Dixon line, in Point Marion, Pennsylvania, the Cheat River discharges into the Monongahela River. It serves as its principal tributary, sending its dark mountain waters on toward Pittsburgh and eventually all the way to the Gulf of Mexico.
So, we've traced this incredible watershed from an elevation of 4,600 feet down through the five fingers of the forks into the wrist at Parsons and straight through the raging rapids of the Cheat Canyon. It is a remarkably complex and beautifully rugged system. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Now that you understand the geography, the history, and the sheer untamed power of this watershed, how will you explore the wild waters of the Cheat for yourself? Will you hike the Allegheny Trail along the canyon rim, or maybe brave those wild rapids? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.